to the craziest workshop in Alabama. This is Alex, and today I'm going to show you something about antique clocks a lot of people don't understand and why they buy one and they think it doesn't run, even if it's just been serviced. So this one, I've already serviced it. However, before I put it back together, I took it out of timing, which is where you take the crook of the escapement and you just bend it to where it won't run properly. So now I have to prop it up with a screwdriver on one side for it to even stay running. And when you put the level on, the bubble's all the way that way, which means it's leaning to the right. So watch what happens when I pull the screwdriver out. Did you hear the tick-tocks became extremely uneven? Now, still a little off, but you get the idea. So pretend that had been sitting on a mantle surface for, say, 100 years that was tilted down to the right just a bit. So clockmaker would have went to their house and adjusted this, or they would have stuck something up under the side, usually coins for some reason instead of pieces of leather. I don't know why. So now we're going to just say this is a perfectly balanced surface, bubbles in the center. So we put the level on the clock and it's showing level. Now it doesn't run. And if I can get it to go for just a second, you can hear it timing out where the times are getting different and different for each swing. And it won't stay running like that. So how do we fix this? Well, it's not the hardest thing in the world. You just have to be careful. I have pliers that have no serrations on the jaws, and if you don't have that, not the biggest deal in the world if you put a couple of tool marks inside of the clock. You just don't want to put tool marks on your hands because you're not going to be able to re-blue these at home, at least not unless you've had a lot of experience. So newer clocks would just have a little screw on the front or a wing or a knurled nut, and you turn that to your left while holding the minute hand, and let's say get your minute hand off, then hour hand just friction fits. But this one, being 1880s, has a tapered brass pin. So you're going to look at the thinner side, which right now is there. And we're just going to hold one side of the arbor and push the thin side out. Alright, so make sure that washer doesn't fall. So there's the taper pin, and always get a little bowl, put your parts in. Just never leave them hanging out. Right. There's the washer. And your minute hand should just slide off. An hour hand is friction fit, so just hold the top of the clock. Pull it straight off. I mean, straight off as possible. Alrighty. And you want the appropriate size screwdriver for your dial screws. And a lot of times these don't fit very well. So when you put them back in, it can be beneficial to put a little Loctite on the tip of the screw. That'll help it stay in there better. And what I like to do is to take the key of the clock while I'm taking the dial off. So when I'm taking the last screw out, the dial doesn't just fall to the floor. And this one just has 2 screws, so no big deal there. Take the key out, carefully lift the dial, and this is generally what you're going to see. And this movement, it's clean, but it has a little tarnish on the front. It is what it is. You know, probably 140 years old, 130 years old, somewhere in that neighborhood. So this is where it can get a little more interesting, so I'm going to zoom in for you. Alright, if you will watch this, this is the escapement wheel, and here is the crook. This is what adjusts the motion of this strap pallet. What you're going to notice is if I move it this way and then back, I had to move it a lot further right than I did left to get the tick-tock. So, if you have a small ruler at home, take note once the balance is still, and take your ruler, and this is exactly 6, so I'm going to put 3 right up under the tip of the pendulum since now the clock's balanced. Alright. So, what I'm going to do now is see, holding down at the 4-inch mark, it ticked, and then at 3/8 it ticked going the other way. So what this says to me is the crook needs to come back this way just a tad. And you got to bend this. You don't want to make this one side or the other, or it can add friction to the pendulum hanger on the suspension. So what you really want to do is hold tight somewhere up here and use your thumb and gently move it. You don't have to do a lot at a time. So once your pendulum's back down, alright. Normally you have to do that several times, but we just got that, I think, first try because we might have gone a little bit too far. So hold it here and we'll go back the other way. Alright. So I'm going to try to help you see what I'm seeing here. So holding straight down, right over to 3. Okay, so right, a little under 1/2 inch. That's 1 inch. So we've got to come back this way just a little bit. Again, hold the crook, bend over a little bit. And hold that straight down. Alright, about 3/4. About 3/4. Just got a hair more to go. A little bit more. Alright. I'm going to tick and a tock at 3/4 inch past 3 on both sides. So I'm going to stop this before the auto record turns off. And we'll do part 2 in just a moment. Alright, part 2 is just to basically show you a couple of tricks. Once it's running seemingly correct, nice even tick and a tock on this one. Just check your level on the case, nice and level. If you don't have a cute little steel ruler like that, take a cheap ruler and just make you one of these little doohickeys. This is not accurate, it's a cheap drawing, but just put that down in your case and just a little bit of Scotch tape, hold it in place to give you a nice little reference, because you want the swing to be even both ways. Nice strong tick, nice strong tock. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. And the reason that is, we'll stop the pendulum for this. I'm going to take the phone off the stand. I know it's just shaky, but this is going to be better than trying to zoom in. Because the idea is, see that? When it comes off the folded side of the strap, it hits the straight side. The other way, comes off the straight side, hits the folded side of the shaft, and when it's running, you're looking for an even drop and hit on both sides, just like that. And the last thing to do before you put the dial back on is see how well it runs with the pendulum off. I found if a clock won't run with the pendulum off, there's something gummed up or stuck in the movement. This one, however, runs perfectly fine. Check the health of your suspension strap. Make sure it's nice and straight and doesn't have any curvature. Make sure your hook's pretty straight. And just overall, even though this one was cleaned, it's got some tarnish I couldn't quite get rid of without going at it with a buffing wheel, and I think that'd be kind of stupid. Since it's hidden by the dial anyway, but it's clean and it's got a coat of drying oil over the whole thing, so it's not going to get any darker. But it's been ultrasonic cleaned and then put in a toaster oven. And then check your, if you don't have a wire like I've put in here to engage your chime, go ahead and watch every single drop. Make sure it's dead in center and that it stops on every deep valley on the maintenance cam. So this one should be good to go. And we'll put back on the stand here. Essentially, this is just the opposite. We're just going to put the clock back together. So everything seems to be good to go. I'm just going to hang this so I don't have to dig up in there and find it once dial's back on. So I'm going to put this back here one more time before we put the dial on, because I can't bend this with the dial on. So all right, we're going to go to both sides. Make sure you want to make sure it starts once you get past the drop on the escapement, and you want the clock to stay running from both directions. Sign of a healthy clock. No weird grinding noises, nothing strange going on. And I will say, this has a cool feature a lot of clocks don't. This has overwind protection, so you don't snap the springs. This set of gears right here, they can only be turned a certain number of times before the one large tooth enters the one shallow valley of the lower one. so you can no longer wind. But the spring is not completely wound up, which is good. It's just pretty close to it. Time side has the same thing. So if you're ever working on one of these particular movements, always note when you get it wound all the way, well, pretty close to all the way up, to get it where the long tooth hits the valley of the lower tooth. And you can just take this off and adjust that if you need to once it's fully assembled. So now we've examined the health of the clock. We'll go ahead and put the dial on, and excuse me, just going to check the balance one more time. Alright, clock shows balance. That's how a clockmaker's going to send it to you, with it running perfectly with the level on the case. It's not going to send it to you running perfectly on your 100-year-old mantle in your house that could be off 1 or 2 degrees. So, what I like to do is put the dial on and just stick the key in, make sure it doesn't fall out. That's always something that can happen that you want to make sure doesn't happen. And I've already put a little bit of glue in these holes to make the screw holes tighter. So these are usually very weak, but they're strong on this one. So the only thing you have to do is, when you're putting the dial back on, take your screw, very small dab of super glue. Try not to get it on anything except the tip of the screw. So that way, when you go to put the screws back in, you can get a little pressure on them. Alright, when the dial's back on, make sure your keys moves in and out without touching the eyelets. I don't know why I did that, just for fun. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and find where I'm chiming from. Alright. This one does not have a half-hour chime, so this will be pointed up. Take note of that. And then I'm going to count the chimes. Hold on just a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right. On these antique clocks, you won't put your hour hand right on the 10. And the reason I say that is because by the time they get to the other side, they're going to be hanging down sometimes 5-10 minutes past the others. So you actually want to go like 9:58, 9:57, and then check the back and forth. I don't know if you can see it on the camera. Yep. You want to make sure the back and forth is just about on point. Then you're going to press the hand on very evenly. And just make sure it's not going to drag anywhere on the dial. Alright, that's exactly where we left it. So, now for the minute hand. This is for a little bit newer clock. This is, like I said, 18, maybe 70s, 80s or 90s Gilbert. Very nice clock. You can tell by the shape of the case. It's not a gingerbread. It's actually mantle clock, but a lot of people call these gingerbreads just because of the way they look. So, I'm going to get a nicer pair of pliers for the taper pin, because this does seem to be a little easier if you've got a little grip. So I just have these fine nose pliers on this multi-tool, and we're going to go from the top and make sure it's coming out the other side, and one jaw on the arbor, one jaw on the pin, and nice and tight till it's pretty close to even on both sides. Doesn't have to be. You can always take it back out and snip a little off, but no big deal. So we're going to go ahead and run this around. And it's right on the 12 as it should be. Alright, go back around one more time. Alright, everything seems to be good. We're going to start the clock. Alright, perfectly healthy clock. And most people do this, but I always just store the key inside the case. And I restored this clock. The movement, full tear down, rebuild, a little tarnished, but it looks nice. Repapered the dial, this part. I haven't repapered the center, which I'm probably going to do. And cosmetic work to get everything right. Had to make that medallion match that one. Hands were rusted, so I had to re-blue those. But overall, the clock's in really good condition. And I ordered this decal, new old stock. Doesn't look as good as the originals, but it's sure darn good looking clock. Sorry about that. That pendulum looks like it's swinging around, but you can tell it's a healthy running clock. And just for reference, you can see nice and level. Hold on, I don't know if you can see. Here. And I have smaller levels just kind of made to stick inside the case, which makes this easier, but I know a lot of people don't have those. You can get a hanging level that goes on a string and lay it flat with the bubble side up, and those are pretty reliable as well. A lot of clock makers use those. I use those when I'm getting the movement straight in the case. So anyway, that's hopefully that'll help you get your clock in time if you ever have any issues. If you have any questions about the videos or about getting a clock in time, let me know in the comment section, and I'll try to do my best to answer to the best of my abilities. And keep in mind, I'm a very novice clock maker. Had to learn all this by necessity within a couple of months because somebody asked me to work on their clock. So I decided to work on some of mine. I ordered a bunch of broke ones, real cheap, like this. This was just a real mess. So I know a little bit, and I can learn some more if you need a question answered. So thank you for watching, and have a wonderful week, and see you next time.